He's back. One of my favorites from season 1, Dr. Michael Klaper, returns to the PLANTSTRONG podcast with a discussion that happens fresh from his presentation at one of our recent PLANTSTRONG immersions. His talk on why every bite matters was so compelling that I just had to dig in a little deeper and share it all with you. If you haven't listened to our interview from season 1 on his thoughts on the paleo diet, you're bargaining with the devil. I highly recommend it, and you can find it with the link in our show notes here. But now, back to today's knockout conversation. Dr. Klaper is the nutritional Gandalf. He is also the nutritional Paul Revere. He is on a quest to not just spread the word to all of us, but also to expose and awaken tomorrow's young physicians to the power of a plant-based, healing, revolutionary diet. People, yes, including physicians, are absolutely afraid to make changes. Even as adults, we're afraid of what people might think or say. Dr. Klaper addresses these fears head-on and asks his audience to let go of their sacred cows and get off their buts. For example, but it's too hard, but it's too expensive, but it just doesn't taste good, and all of those excuses that have held people back for years and years. Every bite matters. Life is made up of small changes, and the food that we eat every day changes us from the inside out. Why not eat the cleanest fuel possible for your metabolic engine? Here's Dr. Michael Klaper to expand on the how and, most importantly, the why. All right, I am here in Sedona. I'm here with Dr. Klaper. We have just finished up another immersion program, and once again, it's been pretty magical.
It's been pretty magical. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And again, I want to thank you for being a part of this team and just helping create an experience that these people will never forget and hopefully take with them, right, for the rest of their lives.
Yes.
And as one of the women said on the first night, she's like, you know, it's going to be, as far as her embracing this lifestyle, it's going to be either one day or today's going to be day one, right? And so she's
Very
like,
good.
this is going to be day one. But that's just, you know, it's amazing. I find it's amazing to me how much we, as I think, as teachers, how much we get from the students.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And you probably better than anyone know that. You've been doing this now for how long?
Oh, a few days. For a good 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that everybody on this team, and I know a lot of people outside this team, consider you a national treasure.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well.
No, truly. And, you know, you have a heart of a hero.
Oh.
And I think that the journey that you've been on and where you are now, as far as now your mission is really to get this message out to medical students, correct?
There's a new generation of doctors coming up. We may have to have nutritionally aware physicians. We can't keep practicing medicine like what our patients are eating has no effect on these diseases when what they're eating is why they're sitting in front of us with all these illnesses. So sure, I'm devoting my time going to the medical schools and being a nutritional Paul Revere and trying to wake up the troops there, saying it's the food. You start with that before you get into $1,000 lab tests. Ask them what they ate yesterday, and everything opens up from there.
Well, so right, it's the food, and one of the things you love saying is it's the food, it's the food, it's the
The
food.
Yeah.
And so that leads me to one of the I mean, there's so many things that you do over the course of this week with these Engine 2 immersions, whether it's being a lecturer, whether it is, you know, doing your Galileo story at talent show night, whether it's telling blood-curdling tales around the campfire, whether it's giving us a lesson on the stars and, you know, the planets, that is just mesmerizing. So you bring such an amazing depth of spirit. But one of your lectures was why every bite matters. And that's what I want to focus the next 25 minutes on.
Sure.
Let me just start by saying, you start this lecture by saying, people, we have to we got to get rid of our sacred cows. And can you go talk about that for a sec?
Oh, sure. There's few things more primordial than people's taste preferences. They get ingrained in us so early. When our mother literally fed us with that loving look on her face as she spooned the whatever into our mouths, that we associate that food with the love of our mother and with who we are and our position in family, our position in society. That term comfort food contains a whole lot of emotional charge to it. And it's one of the major, I can call it an obstacle, one of the major forces we have to take into account when we're trying to get people to change what they're eating and start eating healthier. And those kind of folks, and I was one of them years ago, we carry a whole herd of sacred cows in our head that I like these foods. My doctor didn't tell me that they weren't a good thing to eat. I grew up eating these foods. Whole Foods sells these foods.
Right.
How can you say these are bad? Or at least these aren't helping me? And these are just some of the things we need to confront. And just by putting up that slide and going down the list, people laugh, but then there's that little ring of truth. And yeah, I do believe that. And it makes them have a look at their sacred cows, name them, and let them out to pasture, hopefully.
Yeah, and we all have our sacred cows, every
sure.
one of them.
Every one of them.
And then you follow that up immediately by saying, I want you to get off your butts. And what are some of the butts that people are having a hard time getting off of? These foods taste good, basically. But they're cheap to purchase. But they're convenient. But they don't seem to be hurting me. But everything to dig the claws in and hold on to that into the sinking raft. But Whole Foods sells these foods.
But Whole Foods sells these foods. Exactly.
Yeah. The list is never ending. So I love how straightforward you are with people, and you kind of tell them like how it is in a very straightforward manner that I think people appreciate. And one of the things you say, and I love the way you say it, is that you don't owe anything to anybody. Can I hear you say that and then explain it?
Sure. My job in that talk is to liberate people from these sacred cow beliefs. And when you really get down into the crevices of what people hold on to and why they're afraid to make a change in something as important as their diet, a lot of it has to do, they're afraid with what their friends are going to say about them, the ribbing they're going to take at the dinner table or at the restaurant. Are you eating that rabbit food? And where are you going to get your protein? All the old cliches get trotted out. But especially for a person who's just making this transition, those are formidable, and it's a scary thing. And so I want to help people just break that down, because what is it? I tell them, heaven forbid you get a heart attack or a stroke. It's only you in that hospital bed. It's not the people at work. It's not your daughter-in-law. It's not the people you go out to dinner with. It's you. You're a grown man. You're a grown woman. It doesn't matter what people think at this point. You don't owe anything to anybody. You don't owe any excuses. You don't owe any apologies. You're a grown man. You're a grown woman. It's nobody's business what you order for lunch. Make the decision that's best for your body and for the larger body, if you have any concern at all about animals and the planet and children in the future, we can talk about that as it unfolds. But it's time to free yourself from this paper tiger where people think, what are people going to think? But it's 2019. This is not that revolutionary idea. People know that a lot of folks are trying to eat healthier and that plant-based diets are really a reasonable alternative. And it's getting easier and easier. Don't let that fear that you may have had when you were a teenager that my friends in school are going to laugh at me. Push past that. You don't owe anything to anybody except your own health, and the truth. And it's time to act on that.
I love it. I love it. One of the things you talk about in this lecture is why, or I should say, what is the right fuel for your metabolic engine.
Right.
And the analogy you give is the different types of gasoline.
Yeah, right. And when I have a patient in front of me and they're obese and their arteries are clogged up and their tissues are inflamed and they're just not functioning, they don't have good energy, and as a physician, what is going on? What is the problem? Well, that body, when they were kids, that wasn't functioning or malfunctioning like this. What is happening? And it didn't take long to make the analogy that I grew up on a farm and I watched my uncle put diesel fuel into the tractor engine, and diesel fuel is basically kerosene. It's oilier than gasoline for sure. And it has a whole different combustion qualities and all of that. You don't want to put kerosene, diesel fuel, in a gasoline burning engine. It's going to clog up the gas lines, you're going to foul spark plugs. And that analogy transfers to the human diet, and we are plant-eating creatures by every level, from our small mouths and short teeth and fingers instead of claws and long intestines for digesting plant fiber. We are clearly plant-eating creatures that came down the simian line of evolution. And when we feed our body whole plant foods, it hums along like a well-tuned gasoline-burning engine, a sports car, and our arteries stay clean, blood pressure stay low, the bowels work. That's the way it's supposed to run on the proper fuel. But you put in a bunch of meat and cheese and oil and dairy and food that has no fiber, that is high in fat, excessively high in protein, and it's like kerosene in a gasoline burning engine. It's the wrong fuel, and you run that through the bloodstream hour after hour, day after day, and bad changes are going to start happening. The pipes to carry your gas line, your arteries, are going to start getting inflamed, and as those contaminants, if you will, leaches out into our tissues, the joints get sore, blood pressures go up, insulin resistance happens, and the engine malfunctions, our metabolic engine malfunctions. Now, the beauty of it is, of course, that you switch back to the right fuel, and it's amazing. We have a self-healing mechanism here, and it's just wonderful how the body gets itself back into balance with a whole food plant-based diet. But the automotive analogy is quite apt, I believe.
In keeping with why every bite matters, how long do you think it takes to start injuring the body when you're actually eating the wrong foods?
Right.
The meat, the dairy, the processed refined foods, the oils.
Right.
I mean, does that happen immediately? Does it take a couple of weeks, months, years? I mean, do you have any idea?
Yes, absolutely. On some level, all of the above. And so you don't think it's too dodgy an answer. Sure. I was talking with some physicians about they didn't want to get, don't give me this vegan thing. Don't tell me that all my patients have to be vegan or nothing. Surely if someone has a little bit of meat once a month, that it's not going to really adversely affect their health. And I had to think, well, yeah, that's probably medically true, and I haven't seen any studies showing people that eat a tiny bit of meat once or twice a month have any increased risk. And so I had to acknowledge that. But the more I thought about it, it's true that if you have a little piece of meat, lightning doesn't come down from the sky and strike you dead. But also, you can't kid yourself. Your body's different for eating that meat. You've summoned up different microbes in your gut, and as you change your microbiome, that's going to change you. You're going to, the fat in the meat is going to make you just a tad more insulin resistant. If any of this meat leaks out into your bloodstream, you may become sensitive to collagen, protein, etc., and may inch you a little half inch down towards autoimmune diseases. Everything does change us, hence the title of the lecture, Every Bite Matters. It really does. So does it manifest in obvious pathology and disease? No, but it's not nothing either. There are consequences. So, we're made up of small changes. Our life is made up of small changes that when you're setting off on a journey, or I'm a pilot, when you're flying an airplane, just 1 degree change in your course as the miles go by, you wind up way off course from that one initial miscalculation. And the same thing with our diet. Everything does make a difference. Every bite matters. And so yes, it changes us, whether or not actual disease manifests.
Right. And The Game Changers just came out.
Yay.
You've seen it. There's that one scene where Dr. Robert Vogel draws the blood of the 3 Miami Dolphin football players. One time, 2 hours after they've had a plant-based meal, and another time after they've had a meat-based meal. And you can see, right?
Absolutely.
After the blood's been put in a centrifuge and then spun, and then is it the fat that's at the top?
Yes, the fat winds up in the serum up on top. Right. Yes, right. You can see it.
And after the plant-based,
the blood stays clear. The serum is clear.
And after the meat,
you got this cloudy triglyceride-laden fat and flowing around your bloodstream there.
Right.
And you can't tell me that doesn't make a difference.
And so you talk about in this lecture how what we're doing is we're basically keeping our blood in that kind of unhealthy fatty state.
Yeah. People have bacon and eggs for breakfast, and it takes 5 hours to clear it out of the bloodstream just in time for lunch. And the cheeseburger fat goes through the bloodstream, and then it keeps your blood fatty all afternoon, just in time to visit the colonel and send another wave of fat at dinner. And people are keeping their blood fatty all day, day after day, month after month. Well, how can we be shocked when we wind up obese and clogged up and diabetic and inflamed?
But explain to the listeners, so why is it unhealthy? Why is it bad to have our blood constantly in a state of like being fat like that?
Oh, it changes everything. It changes blood viscosity. The blood is more viscous. It's thicker. This fat coats the red blood cells. A tiny little envelope of fat surrounds red blood cells, and they start sticking to each other. And the red cell mass, as they call it, gets more viscous. And it's like pushing molasses through a soda straw when it comes to forcing this blood through your capillary beds in your brain and your heart and your kidneys. You want that blood free flowing, and it flows more slowly because of all the fat in the blood. And that interferes with oxygen delivery to your tissues. The slow-moving blood as it enters the capillary beds, the initial heart cells or whatever have a long time to extract oxygen out of those red cells. But by the time that poor slow-moving red cell gets down to the end of the capillary bed in your brain or your heart, there's no oxygen left to give to those cells downstream, and those cells get injured. It's a subtle injury, but repeated over and over and over again. Disease soon starts to manifest. But then the fat in the blood injures the arteries directly. Saturated fats are pro-inflammatory. They set off inflammatory reactions throughout the body. There's a whole lot of reasons not to keep your blood fatty hour after hour, and yet that's become our national sport.
Right. And does that take a toll on the liver, the kidneys?
Oh, absolutely. Like this fat piles up, and as you mentioned, is one of the main causes of so-called fatty liver disease, which sets people up for diabetes and all sorts of other problems, as well as chemical hepatitis and an eventual liver failure. You want to keep your liver inflamed constantly. You need it to live. That's why they call it a liver.
Yes.
Right. So everything makes a difference, and this fat interferes with our insulin function, and it moves you down towards diabetes, keeping your blood fatty all day. It's just not the natural state for us.
What's just amazing to me is that we now, and we had a whole interview about it, we have the paleo and the keto camps that almost are telling people to keep their bodies, their blood in this fatty state.
Oh, it's eye-watering to hear them spout that nonsense, that this is in any way a good thing to do for your body. We can go touch on that if you'd like. We discussed it before.
Yeah.
But, it's an outrageous thing. That's not who we are. We are not fat-eating apes. That's not who we are.
One of the things that you discuss in this lecture is it's called The Blind Man and the Elephant.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of it's a look at kind of modern medicine today.
Yeah.
and how it has become so specified that they can't see the forest through the trees.
Oh, for sure.
Can you touch upon that?
Right. Well, the Western diet, based on the meats and the dairy and the oils and sugars and all this toxic mixture that we pour through our tissues hour after hour, causes changes in just about every organ system, whether it's a heart, lung, kidneys, immune system, hormones. That kind of diet, again, it's the wrong fuel, and it causes dysfunction that bubbles up through all the organ systems. And depending on your genetics, one organ system will complain first, and that's going to determine which specialist office you find yourself in. But the reality is, because, again, Western medicine has this egregious blind spot about realizing what our patients are eating is why they're having these problems. The individual specialists get cloistered in their little cubicle, and the internist sees the high blood pressure, and the cardiologist sees the clogged arteries, and the endocrinologist sees the diabetes, and the rheumatologist sees the sore joints, the dermatologist sees the psoriasis, the gastroenterologist sees the colitis and the Crohn's disease, the general surgeon sees the diverticulitis. And they don't realize they're all looking at the same disease. It's what their patients are eating. And yet, because they don't want to open that box, they etiology unknown. We don't know what causes these, but the researchers are trying to figure it out. We'll let you know. And it's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for my profession. We can identify a genetic mismatch on gene A21 on chromosome 14. Boy, we can home in on that with precision. Yeah. But the thought that cheeseburgers and pepperoni pizzas might be clogging up our patients' arteries, this is too abstruse a concept for my colleagues to grasp. It's embarrassing for scientists.
It's amazing to me that they can't see that. It's almost like, the emperor's not wearing clothes.
Oh,
and can you not see it?
See that, exactly. But it's no defense, but the reality is that in medical school, we're not taught about nutrition. They don't have any knowledge of it. They don't have respect for it. It's a sissy science. It's not real medicine. And the fact that they're eating it themselves. They're eating their own burgers and pizzas. They're not going to tell their patients not to eat this stuff. But then you wind up with a sick physician with a big pot belly and a pocket full of lisinopril and metformin. That's a tragedy. So it's time to wake up our profession.
Yeah, and the irony is, it's the most powerful medicine that exists
on
the planet.
Absolutely. If there was a pill that did what a whole food plant-based diet does. I've been doing this plant-based medicine for 30 years. What I have seen, the responses, and quickly, you get people on this wonderful whole food, not processed junk, but whole soups and salads and greens and veggies. And within days, the obesity starts to melt away. The arteries open up. The high blood pressure comes down. The joints stop hurting. The skin clears up. The bowels start functioning. The angina goes away. These remarkable changes happen. As I said, if there was a pill that did that, we'd be trillionaires. But again, it's the food. It's the food. It's the food. Mm-hmm. And to not be able to share this with our patients is really unethical. How can we withhold this information from our patients any longer? And that's what I tell the medical students. I put a slide up with all these diseases, diabetes, high blood pressure. And I said, these are all reversible diseases. You want to heal these patients or don't you? Why'd you go into medicine? If you want to heal them, then get real about what they're eating. Because if you just give them a prescription for statins and metformin and say, come back in 3 months, you haven't helped these patients. You're enabling their diseases. You want to help them? Then send them to the plant-based dietitian down the hall. Let her take them shopping, show them what to eat, and have them come back in a month and see how they're doing. That's how medicine should be practiced. We can no longer ignore the importance of our patient's diet. It's time to have this nutritional awakening.
And you've been hitting the road, talking to medical schools. How long you've been doing that now?
Indeed. For the last year and a half, we've established a nonprofit organization called Moving Medicine Forward. And I've been going to the medical schools, giving the students the lecture I wish someone had given me 50 years ago. I tell them, listen, you're not going to be seeing leprosy and smallpox like you've been reading in your pathology book. It's clogged arteries and diabetes from what your patients are eating. And we need to start with that, get real about that. And if people would like to learn about our work and support us, go to my website, drklaper.com, DOCTORKLAPER.com, and click on Moving Medicine Forward, and you will and be taken to the page that describes not only the program, and yes, you have a little box to help us pay for plane tickets. You want to donate a little bit, but the most important box to click is the one at the bottom that says, if you know a medical student at a medical school, or you know a professor or somebody on the staff of a medical school who'd be interested in having Dr. Klaper come and talk to the students, click here, give us their information, we will contact them. And that's how I organize these lecture tours. I go right to the students. We do an end run around the administration.
Because the administration probably
they don't want to hear this. But the students in every...
And how has the message been received?
Oh, they're delighted because, they have blessed social media. And now, because of our modern age, in every second, third, fourth year medical school class, there's now 20, 30 students who've seen Forks Over Knives. They've seen What the Health, and they've seen Game Changers, a little bit seeing Game Changers. And the light's on. They get it. They understand the importance of this. And they're the ones who reserve the lecture hall. They put up the notices. They send the e-blast out. They orchestrate the event that I come and speak to, either noontime rounds at the hospital or the school, or we do an evening presentation where the public is invited as well. So we go right to the students, and they are very open to this message. They know, and it's time to recognize that.
Yeah, fantastic. I got done going for a 7-mile run with my wonderful dog, Jade. And afterwards, we were relaxing on the grass. We were kind of chit-chatting. And I asked her, I said, Jade, how are you liking your new Wild Earth dog food? And she said, Dad, I'm loving it. I love the flavor. I love how it makes me feel. I love that it has all 10 of the essential amino acids that I need as a dog. I love the fact that I'm not eating other animals. And then lastly, I love the fact that I'm eating PLANTSTRONG like the whole Esselstyn family. So if you want your dog to feel the same way, feel free to go to wildearth.com or Amazon and use the code PLANTSTRONG for 40% off your first order. What, in your opinion, is the 21st century scourge?
Oh, without question, it's this tsunami of obesity that has swept through our society. I've been a physician for 47 years, and when I started in the late 60s, early 70s, there were obese people, but nothing like what you see today everywhere. And it's embarrassing. The nurses in the hospital are obese. The doctors are obese. The airline pilots are obese. It's stunning to see what's happened.
The professional football players
and
are
the
obese.
professional
The firefighters are obese.
The firefighters are obese. Yeah. And instead of getting alarmed about this, we've just accepted, well, that's who we are now. We're Americans. We're fat. You got a problem with that. That's your problem. But we can't afford to be cavalier. Obesity is a state of inflammation. That fat is metabolically active. The fat under the skin puts out estrogens that give women breast lumps, that gives guys prostate cancers. The fat in the abdomen puts out inflammatory molecules that fan the inflammatory fires throughout the body. Obesity is a state of inflammation and disease. It should not be accepted. And again, the beauty of
I think if I could just stop you for a second, because I think that's something that I want people to hear.
Yeah.
That obesity, it's a state of inflammation.
Absolutely.
In the body. And inflammation is what exactly?
It's the body's response to a chemical insult. That, as we're learning more about it, is the root process at the heart of so many conditions, whether it's clogged arteries or migraine headaches, depression, colitis, all these diseases. The big I, there's an element of inflammation down when you really put the tissues under the microscope. You see those white blood cells. You can measure the inflammatory molecules. Inflammation is driving so many of these diseases, and obesity drives inflammation. Not the only cause of it, but it's a major cause, and enough to make obese people not be complacent. It's time to get on with it. And the beauty is this food, you can eat all you want, and the obesity melts away. That's the lovely part of it.
Yeah. And then the obesity also increases your chances for all these other chronic Western diseases,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Major cancer, heart disease, diabetes.
Absolutely. All of the pick a disease, they all get worse with obesity.
Yeah. So you talk about how there's 4 foods that are keeping us obese,
Right. Yep.
heavy, overweight.
Yes.
I'd love for you just to talk today about dairy.
Sure.
Yeah. And what is it? What are the things that are so wrong with dairy products?
Oh, absolutely.
Because you have a way with words with dairy.
I grew up on a dairy farm, on Michael's dairy farm. I know whence that white liquid comes from. So we don't leave your listeners in the lurch here. The other 3 foods that if people are trying to eat a plant-based diet, they just can't lose that weight. I know it's because they're eating 1 or more of 4 foods. They're eating oils in some form. They're eating flour products in some form. They're eating meat in some form, animal fat, and they're eating dairy products, which is baby calf growth fluid. Its sole purpose really is to turn a 65-pound calf into a 700-pound cow as rapidly as possible. And everything in that liquid, the hormones, the lipids, the sodium, the protein, the IGF, it's all there to blow that calf up into a great big cow. And so people have to stop kidding themselves about what this stuff is, and they can't be shocked when their face gets full and their neck turns into a big bull neck and they get a more bovine appearance. But seriously, I can identify the dairy eaters when they walk in my office. They've got that bloated look about them. And now the cows are all pregnant. On my uncle's farm, when a cow was fertile, we'd call the guy from Badger Breeders. He'd come out and impregnate the cow. A very painful, invasive process for the animal. No animal likes that. But naturally, the cow would stop giving milk. Nature makes pregnant females stop lactating for a good reason. But we milked 49 cows on my uncle's farm in the 50s. Now with modern dairy operations, you're milking 1,000 cows or more twice a day, and they can't afford to have their best milkers go offline for months at a time while they're carrying their calf. So now the modern dairy cows have been genetically modified. They've GMO'd the cows, so they will carry their next pregnancy, even though they are still giving milk. They're giving milk all the way through their pregnancy. And when any female mammal, women included, are pregnant, their body is coursing with estrogens. And you can see a pregnant woman, she has this lovely glow about her and thick hair and all that. And that's very nice while you're pregnant. But meanwhile, the estrogens penetrate every organ in the body, every tissue, and it gets into the milk. And the milk of a pregnant cow is loaded with estrogens. And nobody's paying much attention to this, but we're looking at our little girls going through puberty at age 8 and 9 and 10. These are active mammalian estrogens. These are not the puny little phytoestrogens in soy. This is estradiol, estriol, pregnanediol. These are official mammalian estrogens. And the more dairy a boy eats, the higher his risk for prostate cancer when he becomes a man. The protein in cow's milk makes people break out with acne. If a woman's got a little breast cancer, if she's consuming baby calf growth fluid, it's like throwing gasoline on a fire. Those breast cancers grow faster. On every level, this is not the right food for us, and yet we're so attached to that ice cream and that cheese that we can't think of giving that up. But you wouldn't eat cheese made from the milk of a giraffe. You wouldn't be, do you put sheep milk on your cereal? Well, we've got this bizarre fixation about the bovine milk, and it's really an unnatural product. Now it's full of not only estrogens, but all the pesticides and herbicides on the grains that these animals are fed winds up in the milk. There's cows get leukemia. They get bovine leukemia, and the bovine leukemia viruses wind up in the milk. It's scary. It's not clean stuff, and it's scary stuff all the way around. It's time to see we're not baby calves.
Yeah, I think I've heard that the lactating cow, the estrogen levels go up 33-fold than what it normally is.
Absolutely.
And it's probably the number one Is it the number one source where Americans get
absolutely
their estrogens from?
Absolutely, and it's unnatural and everything just for the sake of the money. Going into the biology, nature knows. She's a smart biologist. If a mother fox or mother mink has just had a litter of 8 kits and 4 of them are males, you don't want to be nursing them on milk full of estrogens. The male kids are not going to develop normally. So nature turns off lactation. If she gets pregnant again, she stops lactating. So she doesn't want all that estrogens in the milk. That's the way it's supposed to work. And so modern dairying violates that, and as a result, the milk comes out laden with these powerful estrogens, and we're stunned at all the hysterectomies we do for fibroids and all the breast biopsies we do. Why does this happen? Get your mammograms, ladies. But nobody's asking why all these women sprouting out these lumps. That maybe has something to do with that milk and cheese and ice cream and yogurt full of estrogens that they're eating.
Yeah. What about our bones? Is that helping our bones at all, that dairy?
It's really not. Again, the dairy industry has been expert. They've been artistic in implanting these associations in our head. Milk, strong bones equals cow's milk. Milk is white, bones are white, calcium's white. Got to have that milk to make strong bones. And we all grew up believing that. But the science doesn't support that. When you look around the world, the countries that consume the most dairy products have the highest rate of hip fractures and the highest rate of osteoporosis. And from a scientific point of view, it's magical thinking that as your bones are dissolving, that the milk of a cow is going to somehow magically make your bones reconstruct themselves. Osteoporosis is not a calcium deficiency.
Right.
It's not what the disease is. The bones are dissolving because we're not using them. It's disuse atrophy of the bones. We become sedentary. And if you don't use your muscles, they atrophy. They turn into guacamole. Well, you don't use your bones, and they turn into styrofoam. The bone density leaves, and that's the real disease.
And if you have osteoporosis, is it too late, or can you bring those bones back
absolutely.
and make them healthy?
The important thing, again, start using your bones. The cells that create new bone, the osteoblasts, they're still in your bones. They're just waiting for you, just like your muscle tissues or your muscle cells are waiting for you. Use us, please, and we'll respond. Well, the bone cells want you to just start using us. We used to be physically active creatures. We used to spend in the 1800s, 1900s. We lived on farms, and even the women spent all day out in the garden using heavy tools, carrying buckets of soil, baskets of vegetables. The guys were out gathering firewood and thatching the house roofs. And we were physical creatures, and osteoporosis wasn't an issue. But now we sit. We sit when we eat. We sit when we travel. We sit when we work. We sit when we watch TV. We sit at the computer. We sit, and our bones are dissolving. And we need to start using them to build them up. And to think that drinking the milk of a cow is going to somehow magically restore this very complex tissue called your bone matrix, that's silly thinking. Yeah. It just doesn't work like that.
Where do the cows get their calcium from?
Exactly. Cows don't drink milk. Where do they get all that calcium? It comes from the green plants they eat. The calcium's in the soil and is picked up by the grasses that the cow eats and gets the calcium that way. Well, all greens pick up the calcium from the soil, and that's why we should be eating large quantities of kale and chard and broccoli and all these lovely greens for many reasons, but large among them is the calcium content they have.
Bravo. We're going to wrap it up.
Okay.
I want you to end with this. So you like to tell your patients, there's only 2 places I want to see you.
Yes, absolutely.
What are those 2 places?
Right.
The doctor's office?
Absolutely not. There's a time and place for doctor's office, but really, these diseases shouldn't really happen. People, a newborn baby should not grow up and develop clogged arteries. That's not a natural process. They should not develop diabetes. They shouldn't develop obesity. These diseases shouldn't naturally occur. They occur from the diet that we force through our tissues. And if you eat a healthy diet, there really shouldn't be a need to be knocking on your doctor's office door every week. These diseases shouldn't develop. I tell my folks, if you fall and break your wrist, then go to the urgent care department, get your wrist taken care of. But on a daily basis, I tell them I only want to see you in two places. I want to see you on the bike path exercising, and I want to see you in the health food store buying your tempeh for your spaghetti sauce. That's about the only place I want to see you. And I give them a wink, but there's a big kernel of truth in there. Really, you shouldn't have to be so dependent upon your doctor. Take care of your body, and most of these diseases really shouldn't develop.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Why Every Bite Matters, Dr. Michael Klaper. Michael, again, I just want to say how much I love working with you, love doing these programs together. What a beautiful soul and spirit and man you are. And I just feel so fortunate that we've been able to work together, and I look forward to many more years.
Oh, it's definitely mutual, Rip, and thank you for all your great work. When we first met each other in that car going to a John Robbins event, little did I know it was a wonderful friendship and partnership that we would develop. I'm so grateful for all the beautiful work that you allow both of us to do.
Thank you. Peace.
Peace.
Engine 2.
Engine 2.
Keep it plant strong. Before we wrap up today, I want to talk candidly about how we've made it easier for thousands of people to eat this way with our Plant Strong meal planner. We know that making a big change can seem overwhelming, and it isn't easy coming up with new menus week over week over week, or to get inspired while learning to cook a new way. To help inspire you, we've created a simple and inexpensive solution in our Plant Strong meal planner. It's filled with hundreds of recipes, and we are adding more all the time. And it has the really, really savvy ability to customize your menus around your individual preferences, your household size, and any allergens or dislikes you have. Pretty darn trick. And the meal planner, it's staffed 7 days a week with the absolutely friendliest Engine 2 coaches who will help you answer any and all of your questions. I would invite you to visit mealplanner.plantstrong.com. It's just $1.90 a week when you sign up for a year, and you can save $10 off the annual plan with the code PLANTSTRONG. I look forward to hearing what recipes you and your family love. Well, I hope that you see in Dr. Michael Klaper what I see in Dr. Klaper, and he really is a special human being across the board. And not many people, they have the ability to tell it like it is better than Dr. Klaper. To learn more about his initiatives, including his Moving Medicine Forward program, visit drklaper.com. Now, we want you to get off those butts, as Dr. Klaper said, and the only two places we want you to potentially see your doctor, ideally, are either at the grocery store or out on the bike/running trail. Now, if you didn't know it, Dr. Klaper, he has been a revered member of the Plant Strong retreat team for over 5 years, where he shares his infinite wisdom and his loving, caring spirit with all the guests who attend our week-long events. This year, he's also, for the first time, one of our keynote speakers at Camp Plantstock, which is our weekend extravaganza. I would encourage you to come to one of our events and meet this man who I love to the moon and back. Visit plantstrong.com/events and register today. Next week, I'm going to be flying out to LA to meet with Nina and Randa Nelson. They are identical twins. They are YouTube sensations, and they are also the authors of The Clear Skin Diet and dear family friends of the Esselstyn family going back almost 20 years. If you want to catch the attention of the young people in your family, especially those who are suffering from acne and you're also trying to lure them to eat more plants, you will definitely not want to miss this blockbuster episode. Thank you for listening and subscribing to our show. I want you to know that we read each and every one of your reviews, and we appreciate each and every one. If you want to learn more about this season or today's guests and sponsors, please visit PLANTSTRONGPodcast.com. The PLANTSTRONG podcast team includes Scott Badisil, Lori Kordowich, Amy Mackey, Patrick Gavin, Wade Clark, and Carrie Barrett. I want to thank my parents, Dr. Caldwell B. Esselstyn Jr. and Ann Kryle Esselstyn, for creating a legacy that will be carried on for generations and being willing to go against the current and trudge upstream to the causation. We are all better for it.